Okay, good afternoon, Oznur. I'm talking this afternoon to Oznur Yalgin, who's a Turkish citizen who's living in Belfast at the moment and is under lockdown like the rest of us. Oznur is a published author of many short stories and has just got a book of her short stories coming out in the autumn. What's it going to be called? Do you know, Oznur, your short story book? What's the title?
It will be ağır küre, which means actually a heavy, how can I say, a heavy world or like a heavy globe. But it doesn't make sense in English, I know, but in Turkish it makes sense in a way, like this is the geographical name, like we have geological terms used for the world, Earth.
Yes.
And so on. In Turkey we call it yer küre. So ağır küre rhymes with that, and it just has a reference. It's complicated anyway.
It's a heavy word. We'll wait till it comes out and we'll see it then.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to talk to you about nationalism, Oznur, and how it is a part of your life. When you were growing up in Turkey, where were you? Where did you grow up? Was it in Istanbul?
No, it was in Izmir on the western coast of Turkey.
Right. Okay. So when you were growing up, were you taught to take pride in the fact that you were Turkish? And how was that expressed, or how were you encouraged to, if that was the case?
Yeah, I think when I look back, yeah, of course, we were taught to take pride, I think, definitely, yes, but now it's so interesting because when I look back, I can understand that it was in a kind of system, it was in the education, it was in the ceremonies that we performed in national days, or just before the school we used to chant a kind of oath, I would say. But when I was a child, it all seemed very normal and I didn't just question, oh, this is just a routine. But now when I look back, I think they just abolished it after some, now the primary school kids, I think, don't do that anymore.
They don't have the oath, because the Americans have that as well, don't they? They pledge allegiance to the flag, sort of something like that.
Yeah, we had these routines, but I just saw it like some kind of part of daily routine. Okay, before school, you do that in a school garden, and then you go into the classroom and the day starts. Like, I didn't question it, and also I didn't have that conflict with me because I speak Turkish and I represent, or I kind of belong to the majority of, how can I say, the more advantageous, I think, people,
middle
like
class
culture. Yeah. So I didn't have this confrontation like, oh, am I Turkish? Or so it didn't create any kind of crisis in me.
Yeah.
But with now my mentality, and after now I'm becoming an adult, now I question it. No, it wasn't so. It isn't that much normal now.
That's interesting. When you went to school, you said that you had the sort of oath of allegiance or a swearing in, so to speak, in honor of your country. Would the school have had the national flag flying over it? Would the flag have flown at sporting events, or?
Of course, yeah. In Turkey, this national flag is very important. It was important. Now it's still, I think, a very visible symbol, and people don't hesitate to use it for whatever they want to express in Turkey. It's still important. And in garden, yes, we had Turkish flag always. Yeah.
Yeah. Would it have flown at the school itself, over the school?
It was, as far as I remember, like it was always hanging, like high, and especially in national holidays, which are very related with the Republic, foundation of Republic Turkey, Kemal Atatürk, and his changes, reforms, revolutions. Then when we want to celebrate, everyone had this, even the small papers, and like little kids, we were just flying. It was a part of normal. Now I see it like, oh, it's a bit intense when I look back.
So the schools were doing that that was part of what they were told to do, essentially, or were people were the teachers very willing to do that because they were proud of being Turkish and this was a way of expressing it?
exactly. I would say because I was in Izmir. Izmir is especially very famous for secularist ideology. Like it's the westernized, most secular, and they are very much loyal to Kemal Atatürk, the
Mhm.
founder of Turkish Republic. So like especially in that region, like yeah, people and but to your question, it was a nationwide in the curriculum. It doesn't matter if dominantly a Turkish place or secular place, or like in the southeast we have more Kurdish communities living. Like I
Yeah.
guess it was the case for them, and I think it must be a totally different story for them. Like
Yeah. The Kurds comprise about 20% of the population in Turkey. Is that right?
yeah, that's what I know. Like
Is
I
there
don't know the number. Yeah.
yeah? Is there friction between the majority and the minority there?
Yeah, of course. But like when I was little, when I was in primary school, like when I was in a school time, I remember, I think that's where I resemble Turkey and Northern Ireland case very much, because there was an ongoing war in Turkey. We didn't call it a war, but it was a war, I think, because people were going to the military service, and then we've been hearing stories of, okay, martyrs dying and the terrorists being killed, like in the TVs, in the media.
Yeah.
But now when you start the question, like for some other people it's just vice versa. For them the others are brutal killers, and
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
our terrorists are their freedom fighters or
Yeah.
their martyrs. So like
Yeah.
uh, so I mean, it was in the curriculum, and like in this friction I felt, even if I was in Izmir, I remember people having some sentiment or like feeling or anger when lots of soldiers die. You hear that in the news, and people are getting angry, and like they have kind of repressed feeling, they feel victimized.
Mhm.
But then yeah, again I think it's very different how I felt when I was little, when I grew up after university. When you start to question the official ideology, then you see it's a totally different experience being experienced in the same country. Like
Yeah. Well, I'll come to that in a minute, Oznur. Uh, do you know the words of your national anthem?
yes, of course, yeah,
I
we
won't
were.
ask you. I won't ask you to sing it now, because if you sing it in Turkish, I won't understand it anyway. But is it the Irish national anthem is sometimes criticised as being bloodthirsty, talking about battles and so on? Would that be the case with the Turkish national anthem?
A very good question you asked me. Like our national anthem, we only read the first two stanza. How can I
Yeah,
say now?
stanzas.
Like
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
verses.
first two, but like in a whole, all of it, it's like a poem. I would say a prose,
Yeah.
and it is it is like it consists of 10 parts, 10
Yes.
pieces. So like I would say it really glorifies the idea of being Turk, and like we are such a noble nation, like we didn't yield to other powers.
Mm-hmm.
Like the symbols of our flag is like a crescent and a star,
Uh-huh.
and it's the background is red. And we were told, I remember, like this is the blood of our nation or the enemy, something, but it's, of course it associates with blood because it's the color red.
Yeah.
And on it there is a crescent and the star. And I remember in national anthem's words, it's also reflection on the how the crescent and the star, we didn't let them stamp on it. Like of course it's really nationalistic.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Well, that's yeah. Okay. Um, what things about Turkey do you miss now that you've? How long have you been living here?
well, in Belfast since December, but in the UK, where we moved to London first, it's been over a year. It's
Uh-huh.
been like 14 months, 13 months. Yeah.
Has your perception of yourself as being Turkish been heightened, or has it been lessened by living abroad?
Uh, I wouldn't say it's heightened. It's just maybe it just lessened, or just it's neutral, because I've never felt myself as a part of, I don't know, like for me, I don't feel I belong to that idea of nationalism so much, because I thought it's such a random concept that I had no rights. I had no option to choose it. It's just a given identity for me.
Yeah, yeah.
But I know many people see it, especially in Turkey and many places, I think. They see it's something coming from history and something natural. It's something making you superior to the other nations, even if they don't say it directly, but this is given to you, I think. Sometimes, mostly it's said even directly. So I never felt like I'm part of like, oh, I'm Turkish, being Turkish. So it didn't affect me so much. But when I observe some other Turkish immigrants here, I feel like if they were so much more nationalist than me back in Turkey, now they have more crisis wherever they go, because they feel easily insulted, they feel easily offended when people make some remarks. But
Yes.
for me it's not the case, because I've been criticizing and I've been unhappy with some things going on in Turkey. So I it's very sad maybe, but in a different country I sometimes feel I'm more able to breathe and more I could be myself. It's
So
sad for me,
that's
but
interesting. So actually being away from Turkey allows you to think more freely about Turkey.
yeah, I think so. The only thing I miss is food. Yeah, food is great. This is
Yeah.
just like this culture, making food, eating, having a dinner. I really miss that. Just apart from this, and especially also the weather, I don't, yeah, I don't feel so much like, oh, I belong or I miss my country. Now, whenever I mention the difficulties of living abroad, when I talk to my friends, because it's really difficult to settle in another country, it's a very different experience. They all just answer me back, oh, you miss Turkey, or do you miss something? I said, no, it's not about missing anything. It's just difficult, but it's not about I was more I was much more happier in Turkey or not. It's not the case. Like, it's just difficult being in a different country wherever you go. First years, you have to be in a system, bureaucratic, like procedures. So that's what I mentioned. But it's interesting. Like many of my friends ask, but I say not much. I don't miss so much.
That's
Yeah.
very interesting. Do you not miss, I mean, Turkish music or Turkish dance or people speaking Turkish, the sound of the Turkish language itself? Are
Yeah,
those not things you'd miss? Are those things you're proud of?
yeah, I would say I miss the comfort of hearing and speaking Turkish. This is very comfortable. This is
Yeah.
my biggest comfort zone, I say, because whenever I speak, even if I speak Turkish, I'm sometimes nervous and I can't express myself very well. When I speak English, though I know, okay, my grammar is fairly good, okay, I've been teaching English back in Turkey, so I have maybe a fair good knowledge of English, but still it's not my native language, and it's still a performance for me. I mean,
Mm.
so this is a bit bothering, but this is not about being Turkish, or like, even if I was in, I don't know, France, speaking French, and if I was a Spanish person, then I would feel the same. So I've been thinking about nationalism a lot, but I think I'm the least nationalist people to talk like in
Is
this
that
kind
got
of.
to? Sorry, Oznur, is that a bit to do with class? I wonder. You said, I think you suggested you were middle class.
Yeah,
Has that? Are you suggesting that the middle class are less obviously patriotic or nationalistic than are, say, the working class?
it would be a bit too far to make a generalization for me, because when I think of my community where I grew up, still people are nationalists, really. Like my parents still, like whenever it's a national holiday, they don't hesitate to put up the flag, and but this is very complex issue, because when they put up the flag and they put it in a balcony, and like, this is not because they're proud of Turkish, this is because they ideologically think like they're anti-governments, and like they're using the flag to reflect and say, okay, the Republican values, the first establishment values were better. It's interesting. But of course, you're right. If they were bothered by this, or if they start the question, they would be still hesitating whether to, I mean, what is the use of hanging a flag? What are you trying to show off? Like, I mean, so I would say, like, I think I'm a bit extreme. I'm a bit more than less nationalist than many of my other friends.
I get the feeling you were that way before you came here. Has that intensified? You know, have you your objective look at Turkey increased since you came to Britain or to Ireland?
Not much. I think it didn't affect much because I came here before also. I stayed 1 month. It's not that long, but or like when I was studying at university, I went to Poland. I stayed 4 months there. It was a different experience again, but I didn't feel like, again, the only things I missed was like some practical things, some pragmatical, easy, comfortable things, because back in Turkey, I think that's the case with me and many of my friends. When you have liberal thinking and when you start the question, you already become an outsider and stranger in your community, and then your sense of belonging weakens day by day, and especially with the political power, their speeches, like it's horrifying to keep hearing them. So then I think how can I say, your attachment really loses and loses. And then I was in that point before I came to UK and Ireland, so that's why I think I don't miss so many things. If I were a very nationalist person and being proud of our history, like Ottoman Empire, fantasies, if I was full of these, I think I would have really certainly a hard time here. I think it's not about here, Northern Ireland. Whenever you go, you would feel everything as a threat. Like, how come we are the Turks? We are the great nation. Like, some people still have that concept. I see it.
So your concern would be essentially that Turkey should be a well-run state. It should be properly governed rather than any sort of uncritical acceptance of the country and pride in it.
I would be very happy if we were talking about or proud of human rights or like freedom of speech, if we were like Turkey's official speech or discourse is that, oh, we are so ahead of democracy, or we're such a good example, but this is delusional. I mean, this is very ridiculous. This is really ridiculous to hear that. This makes me sad. And like in these moments I feel that still I belong there, to be honest. Like when I worked very shortly in London for 2 months.
Yes.
And I had my colleagues, some of them like British and American friends. When we start talking about our countries, like American friends said, oh, I'm so ashamed when Trump speaks and gives a statement.
Yeah.
And then my English friends said, oh, it's same with now we will have an election. Before they didn't have, and we are afraid Tories will just take power. And I said, of course, whenever Erdogan makes speeches, I'm just stunned and I can't believe, like, I feel it like delusional, and that's why I think your sense of identity loosens. And
have you experienced, since you came to Britain or to Ireland, have you experienced racism or anti-Turkish sentiment?
Not, I wouldn't say I experienced that. Actually, or even if I have some problem, I didn't consider it, especially racism. Like it could be, I had some unhappy moments, and I realized some prejudices with the peoples, like with landlords, or when we rented a flat, we had some issues of confidence, like trust issues. And I finally thought this is because maybe we come from Turkey. Yeah. I felt sad, but I didn't think it again as racism, because like we rented the house we had some issues. Like we tried to make ourselves, how to say, we thought we were honest, but still the landlady and another landlord we had were so much suspicious, like we were
Yes.
trying to do something secret or like illegal. It was sad, but I didn't still uh, conceptualize it as a racism.
Very interesting. Would you say, looking at Turkey today, that it's an inward-looking country, that it's concerned with its own past and its pride and its language and so on? Or would you say it's an outward-looking country that's interested in being part of the EU and is concerned with, as you say, things like human rights and so on?
Yeah, of course, now we are becoming more and more isolated and more inward looking. Yeah, of course, this is deliberately, I think, done with the, especially recent years. It's such an increasing speed. Like we are, I think, losing all our relationship and like risking everything and being proud of our past and so on. But this is so ironic. Again, it makes me sad because the the claim to become independent and like we don't need any power, we don't need any global powers, this discourse is so invalid and so false, because at the same time you're becoming more and more dependent to other countries because of economy and because of your political decisions, your strategies. Like for a Turkish citizen, you have to get a visa for almost every country in the world. Almost every country. This is unbelievable. I mean, for even some countries, you would think they're not politically so strong, or like they are less in the world arena than Turkey, or they are less visible. I was very surprised their citizens can come to Turkey without getting a visa, for example. I love traveling very much, and this really bothered me. And I thought, like, this discourse and the reality, there is a huge gap. And like, some people are buying it, some people partisan, like enjoying it. A lot of people in Turkey are very unhappy about it.
Yeah. I was wondering how many people would most Turks have your view on things, or would most Turkish people have this inward looking, or whatever you want to call it, sort of boundaries around their love of their country? Would most be inward looking or most outward looking?
I think it's less than half that people are inward looking.
Really?
I mean, these people, less than half. This is in reality, but their voices are heard so much, and all the media, mainstream media, are so much in their party's power that they're all we hear is their voice, like in everywhere. So I always think, like, I'm a very pessimistic person. I think, oh my God, they're the majority. Like, it's unbelievable, this becoming like a hell. But I think no. Now I realize, and I've been reading some surveys about it. Actually, no, because we are a very polarized country now. Unfortunately, very much polarized. And the opposition party and the government, they have the half of the votes of Turkey, like 50-50, I would say, more or less.
Yes.
But less than, I mean, the ones who are pro-government, not all of them are still so optimistic anymore, because the reality is economy is so much failing. Like Turkish money losing its value in records high. Like this is just very sad. And now people cannot buy this rhetoric anymore. They can't. I think they start to question, like, even the partisans, I mean, government supporters now start to think like something is wrong. What if like, because they've been told like world is so jealous of them, Europe is so jealous of them. This is I know it.
do you think that there was a stage in your life, or can you think of a moment in your life when you were really proud of Turkey or proud to be Turkish?
Yeah, when I was like not proud, I don't know, but maybe like, maybe now I can answer it to your previous questions. You told me how I felt after I moved here. I sometimes think maybe, but it's not that pride. I wouldn't call it a pride, but I would call it, that's a good thing. We have this our culture, and this is actually something positive. This is it, like we are so much, we love being in a community, but it has its dangers and advantages. It's sometimes good because everyone is ready to help, but it is at the same time dangerous because everyone is ready to interfere with each other's life. I mean, it has two sides, because when people are so much in relation, you can't really have your personal space. But I sometimes feel like here the private space is so important. It is good initially, but then you realize people don't really, how can I say, trespass that line to reach the other person. Not in Ireland, not in Belfast, but especially when I was in London, my impression is like, oh my God, like this is your space, this is my space, and this is your life. And like I think there were some times, especially when we were trying to rent a place and rent a flat.
Yeah.
It's a big issue because you don't have credit history in a new country, so
Yeah.
you have to convince the landlords so that they would give you a flat. So there are many times I thought, if it was in Turkey, my parents' generation and even other people would be more ready to trust the other person a bit. But this is just a personal impression. In those moments I thought, oh, maybe our culture is a bit welcoming and more, I thought sometimes. But I don't know, this is not a, but also I know we are very, like there is a growing distrust to Syrian refugees in Turkey. And so it's hard to say we are
Yeah,
overall.
yeah. Okay, this is, because of time, Oznur, we're going to ask me this is the last question. Do you think, as a Turkish person, that by and large, nationalism is a force for good in the world? Or do you feel, by and large, nationalism and pride in your country is a negative force in the world?
By and large, I would definitely say it's negative. I think now in this century, I think it's not that much valid when I think about it. But I can sympathize with the foundation of Turkey and its ideology. I can understand it's like the spirit of the age. It was, I could understand, like nation, self-determination, and it was a kind of in the ideology to make people more loyal or whatever. I could a bit understand. I don't mean they were right, but now in this century, I think it doesn't work anymore, because you need to be more inclusive. You need to be aware of the other communities. They don't feel themselves Turkish, and they don't have to feel Turkish at all because they're not Turkish. Like they speak different language, they come from different history, they have lots of different experiences in your country. So in my case, in my history, in my community, I think it's not inclusive, this nationalism. That's why I a bit hesitant. I'm just a bit to cautious.
Thank you very much, Oznur Yalgin. That's been most enlightening. Thank you, and good luck with your book. We'll come and get you back again, and you can tell us about your book. Okay, thank you.